So today I'm going to talk about a subject that can be a little touchy with some people, and it's toxic relationships. So a lot of people I know these days are in very toxic relationships, whether it's their partner, their boyfriends, their girlfriends, their mothers, their fathers, coworkers. They just feel like they're in some sort of a toxic relationship. And a lot of times they're asking, why me? Like, I work with clients, and a lot of times they have toxic parents. Some of my friends, they have toxic partners. Some of them are even going through divorces and stuff because of this toxicity. And sometimes when you're in those relationships, you don't realize you're in it, and then you get to the point to where you're looking up things about toxic relationships and narcissism and all this stuff, and you're like, yeah, that's them. I'm in this, and how do I get out? And oftentimes a lot of people want to run away from them. And at sometimes, yes, that is a good idea, is to leave. But what if it's your mother or your father? You can't exactly leave. You can just accept them for who they are. You really can't try to change them. But those toxic relationships are actually there for a reason in your life. Now, I've done a video, and you've probably heard this before, where your world is your mirror. So anything that you observe in your outside world is something that's going on inside of you. So, for example, when you're on top of the world and you think the whole world's beautiful, then, you feel great inside. But then at other times when you feel like you're judging people or things are really triggering you, you need to look at those things and be like, okay, why is that thing bothering me? Why is that thing triggering me? What's inside of me? People often say, well, people will judge that person because there's some insecurity inside of them. So if you have a toxic relationship in your life, most likely you probably do since you're watching this, or you at least know of somebody who's in a toxic relationship. What is the purpose of that? And what should be done about it? Well, a lot of what I've discovered now is these toxic relationships. And I use the word toxic loosely because people can always claim toxic. Like, there's some relationships that are very toxic, where it's just like the partner or the parent is just putting all this like abuse on them. They're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're nothing, all this stuff. And try to look at that like, okay, well, that's a reflection of what's going on inside of them. And if it's truly something going on inside of you, if they're telling you you're not pretty enough or you're not smart enough or whatever, and you actually start to believe it, you're taking on, I don't want to say you're taking on their baggage. You're believing those programs. That's almost your mirror right there. So you can just say, well, they programmed me that way. Well, they did, but there must have already been something inside of you already that was saying that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, whatever. And that's just triggering it more. When you can get to the point of not being bothered by it, that is where you are successful. You can use I heard this on a podcast or something a while ago. It was just a little snippet of it where, and I think I've used this example before, where, someone could call me a fluffy unicorn and that wouldn't bother me in any way. I would laugh at them like, okay, I'm not a fluffy unicorn. That doesn't bother me in any way. But if somebody were to comment on my weight and just like, oh, you're such a toothpick, that's something that's bothered me my whole life. And that would kind of strike me. And I'd be like, okay, well, why am I so self-conscious about that toothpick? Well, they're making that remark. So there's some insecurity inside of me that's making that bother me. So when you're in these toxic relationships, if you can get to the point of finally just seeing them and observing them, just like you would observe somebody on the street and be like, wow, okay, that's interesting. Why are they reacting that way? You just kind of observe them. But if you're in the relationship and they're bothering you, you haven't overcome something. Once you can get to that point where you just observe them and be like, okay, that's just their problem. Now, sometimes there's that whole fake it till you make it thing, like, okay, I see that they're coming at me, they're griping, they're complaining, whatever it is they're doing, and you can get to the point to where you're like, okay, I'm observing, that's just them, but then deep down there's still parts that are kind of pulling at you. That's where you need to start really becoming aware in those relationships, is like, okay, what part is triggering me? What is it that I need to work on? Now, another part, though, of these toxic relationships or whatever you want to call them, a lot of it is actually karmic. Some of you might believe in karma, some of you don't, some of you believe in past lives, some of you don't. But from everything I've learned, this is my own belief that past lives do exist. These are karmic things. You probably made some sort of a contract before you came down here that, okay, I'm going to have this person in my life and they're going to help me overcome this by being this way. And so whether it was your mother that did something to you, or it's your partner and they're triggering something inside of you, you agreed upon this. And you don't necessarily want to run away from that. Like I said, there might be points where it's like, I have to. And I understand that. That's totally fine. But some of you may see, especially if it's partners, that you're attracting the same person. So you're like, oh, well, my last partner was, horrible. This one seemed fine, but now they're horrible. And then it's like you keep attracting the same thing. Guess why? Because that thing inside of you has not healed. It has not evolved. You haven't let go of that. And this person is in your life in order to help that come out of you. So you can keep running away from the problem, or you can stop and face it. And that's where these relationships, especially if it's someone like a family member, some of that's just like, you can't get rid of your mom. You can just ignore her for the rest of your life, but deep down, is that really what you want? But partners, yeah, you can, get rid of them and move on to the next one. But like I said, you may just keep repeating the same old pattern. And the way karma works is what I've heard, is you can keep running from the problem, but it's just going to keep coming to you until you face it. And so you may as well just stand there and face it. And if you don't heal it or overcome it in this life, you're going to go into your next life and you're going to do the same thing. Or it may even be harder because you're like, okay, I didn't learn my lesson. Let's try it again. But this time, let's be even harder. Let's just say this life is just a partner. But the next life you choose, it's both your mom and your dad. And then it's just like on top of you. And you grow up thinking, oh, my parents made me this way. But it's all about the overcoming process. So you want to overcome these karmic things that probably have been a pattern in many, many lives. And so you want to overcome that by dealing with whatever's going on right now. Quit pointing the finger. That's the biggest thing. You can keep pointing the finger and saying, they're causing me to feel this way, they're making me feel this way, but they did this to me. Okay, yeah, I know. I can admit that even with my own husband. A lot of, like any relationship you've been in, have you ever been in a perfect relationship? No, you're always going to have some kind of feuds. I've seen my husband in many past lives, and I'm sure we've got lots of things that we've done to each other, and we need to pay back some kind of karmic debt. So it's really about just going like, okay, I need to face this. Something needs to be healed from the past. Let's see how I can work through this. And if somebody's coming at you, like arguments are everyone's biggest trigger, because obviously you have one viewpoint, they have another viewpoint. But if you can stop arguing and defending and be like, yeah, but this and yeah, but that, and just stop for a moment, pause, and be like, okay, yeah, I'm about to spew out something and say, why? Why are you doing that? You're defending something inside of you. What is that thing that you feel you need to defend? Now, I understand it's about maybe stepping up into your power and stuff, but are you really powerful when you're just bitching all the time and complaining and just like, you'll do this and you, no. That's not stepping in your power. Stepping in your power is like overcoming things. And that's another thing that I've really noticed a lot with people that I've talked to or clients that I've worked with. A lot of this with these relationships is learning to step into your own power. You're to this point to where you're like, okay, I didn't realize that this person was walking all over me. And now I've realized that I'm not going to stand for that anymore. You've probably had programs or karmic things put into you to where you felt like you were not good enough and you had to live up to a certain standard, or you had to be a certain way for people to love you, like you're not lovable. You've got all these programs, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, nobody can love me, or whatever, I'm not pretty enough. All these programs are in there and they're trying to be pushed out. You don't need those programs in there because you are pretty enough, you are smart enough, you are lovable, all that thing. We all come from source, we all come from love, so we are all perfect. We just need to get all this other stuff out of us so that we can realize that potential of being perfect. Now that's not the, I don't want to say that's not the ultimate goal. That is the ultimate goal of perfection, because we can be perfect. I don't like to use that word perfect, but you know what I mean. That's kind of what we want to get to. And I'm sure there's been many times where you've stepped back afterwards and been like, whoa, okay, I really overreacted. It's really, you just need to start assessing the situation of these relationships you're with. So you, in order to complete the process of these relationships, you can't expect that person to change. But I feel that the karmic debt or the karmic lesson or whatever it is will have been achieved when you are no longer triggered. So if that person is still triggering you, you still have stuff to learn. So you can sit there in the relationship and say, okay, this sucks. Or you can sit there in a relationship and say, okay, what is this trying to teach me? What do I need to overcome? What do I need to learn? How can I overcome this to become a better person? That's what it is. That's really what it is. And until you can get to that point, you're still just going to be stuck. And don't wallow down into it and keep blaming that person and just say, I just want out of this. And I hear that time and time again. I've been that way too. I'm just like, I don't want this anymore. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. But now I'm like, yeah, but how many times have I done this in the past, in past lives, or even in this life, that I'm just like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm just, whatever, I don't want to deal with it. And then it comes back around. So it's just like dealing with that. I've talked about it before. You've got that pile of crap sitting over in the corner. You don't want to deal with it. And until you can deal with it, it's just going to keep piling up, because that thing that's triggering you, it's going to keep triggering you. And more stuff might pile up on top of it. So you better just get over there and take care of it. Because then once you clean up that pile of crap, then you can realize, you know, I'm like looking at my yard right now. I'm like, okay, if there's a big pile of crap over there, once I get that crap cleaned out, then everything starts to grow and flourish over there. It'll be beautiful. So same with you. You clear all that crap out that person is trying to push out of you. And once you get that out, you're going to have a beautiful slate to build off of and to grow. And it'll just be beautiful. So try to look at that instead of, oh, there's that pile of crap and they just keep piling more on top of me. And you're pointing at them. But it's overcoming your environment. That's what I try to tell people a lot, is overcome your environment. Because that's when you're constantly going like this, you're not overcoming your environment. You need to see, okay, what in my environment is triggering me? Why is that triggering me? What do I need to do to overcome that? And, you know, that's a whole nother story in itself, is what do I do to overcome that? And that's really just standing up for, I don't want to say standing up for yourself, because again, that can just be like, yeah, I'm standing up for myself, I'm defending myself, and that can be negative too. I've caught myself in that trap too, where I find like I'm standing up for myself, but yet the words coming out of me are kind of hurtful. It's not out of love. And it's really all about becoming aware of your thoughts and your actions. So if you're still running those same programs, like, I hate this, I wish this would end, why is this person doing this to me? Or if you're just like, okay, let me change this. And that's where the beauty comes in, and it just becomes more and more positive. So you can run away from it, or you can embrace it. And that's a lot of people that I talk to now, they're just trying to embrace it. And I do see them getting stuck in the trap. We all do, because they're just like, this is too much. I can't take it. And something else you can also notice is that if you change, people around you will change. I've also seen this too, though, where something like narcissists, they hate when you stand up for yourself, basically. Like when they finally realize that things aren't triggering you anymore, they get upset. And oftentimes it's because they have their own shit inside of them that they're not dealing with, and so they're projecting it out onto you. It's a whole mirror back to one another. So they're going to be in that power position constantly, like you, and they're going to make you feel like shit. But once you finally are like, dude, it's not me, then they're like, oh crap. Then it's almost like you're flipping the mirror back, and they're finally seeing that mirror flipped on them, and they're like, okay, I've lost control of that person because they're no longer reacting. And so now they're like, I have no one I can control. It's because they have no control over their own life, that they have to try to control everything outside of them. And so once they come to that realization that you are no longer bothered. You are no longer triggered. You're a better person. You're this bright, wonderful person, you know, and maybe they leave and then they go find somebody else that they can do that to again, you know, or it's a parents and then they go find, I don't know, who else they can do it on. And I've even heard from other people that they pick particular on one person, maybe not the others. And for whatever reason, like I said, that could be a karmic thing, like between that mother and that child, but the other children were fine. Who knows? But just know that that toxic person, they can overcome that stuff too. Now, don't go trying to tell them, okay, well, you need to fix this and you need to do that. Yeah, that's just going to trigger them more. And they might come right back in you and say, well, you need to fix this, and you're not going to listen. It's just it's a constant battle. So, like I said, it's here for you for a reason. And the main goal is to step in your power, learn your lessons, and don't allow it to be a trigger for you. And you'll see that over time, that person no longer triggers you. If it's simply somebody at work, that's usually a little bit easier to overcome because it's not constantly in your face. It is when you go to work every day, but you'll notice eventually that coworkers, it's easier for them to go and maybe find somebody else to pick on. So maybe it's not as bad, but whether it's a mother or a father or a partner or something, that's a little more different. And you'll see that maybe they're going to start, I don't want to say spiral down, but they're going to start seeing differently. When you start to change, they're going to start to realize, like, you're stepping into your power and now they're losing their power. And that's huge. That is really huge. And I don't want to say that's the ultimate goal, but in a way it is, because you're growing and they're growing. And that was probably part of the contract. If you think about it, if that was a contract and you came down, that lesson wasn't just for you. You weren't like, okay, well, this person is going to be really rude to me and really mean to me and really hurtful to me so I can learn my lessons. Well, what are they getting out of it? They're going to get lessons too, because they're going to have this whole power thing that they have to realize that once they lose their power, then they're like, oh, that's their kind of breaking point to where, like, I have no more power or control, and they lose control over their own life. And that's when they kind of go into this, I don't know. A lot of times when we start to evolve, it's because we reach some breaking point, whether it's our health, loss of job, loss of marriage, car accident, something like that. Many of you have probably seen that. There's some breaking point that allows you to be like, oh crap, I need to change something. And that you could be that point, but you don't tell them you need to change, no. By you overcoming yourself, you can be a great mirror to show them, hey, look, I can be awesome, so can you. You know, but like I said, you've got to do it. It's all out of love. It's all out of love. It's not out of, see, look at me, I'm great now. No, you're not bothering me. I'm not, no, that's not how it is. If it's all out of love, you're just basically going to reflect that out of you. And that'll cause them to change. And it's a really interesting thing, because I've seen it with little subtleties around me as I'm changing. And people will say, well, it's because you're looking through different goggles. You're looking through a different view of the world. Yes, some of that is it, but also as you're changing, these people are sensing that too. And then it kind of forces a change in them too. It's the whole mirror thing, that they're seeing a reflection in you and almost like, okay, well, maybe, you know, and it's not really on a conscious level. It's kind of on a subconscious level. Some of it's conscious, and that's kind of where a lot of the thoughts need to come, is from the unconscious to the conscious, so you can become more aware of it. So, I'd love everyone else's opinion on this topic, because I see it popping up all over the internet now. I feel like there's so many relationships, and I feel like in the past there has been a lot of relationships like that. It just hasn't been talked about a lot. It feel like, I don't want to say it's mostly women, because there are narcissistic men or toxic women. I mean, I've seen that too, but it seems like over time men have constantly pushed down on women, and that's kind of where this power trip is coming in, where the men are always like, well, I'm in charge, I'm powered up, you know, and men haven't really faced their emotions. And so women have all been like, okay, I'm just going to do what everybody says to make them love me, kind of thing. And so there's this whole balance. It's almost like this masculine power is overpowering. I don't want to say overpowering the whole planet, but yeah, maybe. And the feminine it's like down here, and we need to be more in a balance. And so I feel like these relationships that you're seeing more now are kind of balancing that out. And I feel even when it's a woman that is the toxic one, they're more in their masculine. You know, I mean, the masculine is kind of tough and strong and bold. And so when you do have that woman basically almost needs to be pulled back down into a more feminine power. So there's this whole balance. You don't want too much of the masculine, too much of the feminine. And I feel that these toxic relationships are trying to balance that out between two or more people. It could be a whole family unit of it, especially if it's parents to the whole family. It could be all those kids needed something, and when they start to step into their power, then the parents are like, whoa. So like I said, I'd love to hear your experiences with all this too, because I'm sure many of you have been through much of this, and how you've dealt with it, how you've experienced it, maybe lessons that you've learned from it. So please leave comments below. Thank you very much for watching.